order at 4:03. I'll start with attendance. I'm here. Chief Waterbury is not here. Or Commissioner Waterbury. Commissioner Johnson here. Commissioner Burford
Here.
Commissioner Chung
Here.
Commissioner McCusker.
Here.
Okay, great. And anybody online, Thomas?
No.
So nobody from the public? Okay. All right, any comments on the minutes?
Seemed complete.
I had one question, and I think it was more around the rat feed and the firefighters association. I think that was in the minutes where it talked about the association might be doing a rat feed.
Never heard anything further from them.
Okay, okay, I just wanted to make sure that I heard that properly, but okay. All right, sounds good.
One brief comment. You brought up, we were in like day 1 or day 2 of the fires,
Yeah,
and you brought up about a $100 billion threshold. What is that number now in terms of like?
250.
You guys want to,
2 billion.
what are you talking about? 250 billion, what?
I said, the insurance marketplace would not react to a catastrophic loss unless it was over $100 billion, because
Yeah,
valuation
right.
was good and rates were good. And at this point, I go, and this will go over $100 billion. And he
course.
caught it, and now it's, with everything in, it'll be 250 billion.
They broke it.
yeah. Unbelievable.
And it's only February.
Yeah. Okay, so back to minutes. Do we have a motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, first thing we had was to continue the conversation that we were having about the goals. So of the fire commission, and hopefully you all had a chance to read the bylaws that were included in the chief's report. Did anybody not have a chance to review them? Because if that's the case, we can just run through them really quickly right now. I thought it was quite interesting under section 2.16.013. The board powers and duties subject to the direction and control of the city council. The powers and duties of the board of the fire commissioners shall be to review and recommend concerning the future needs of the fire department in respect to long-range capital needs, including buildings, training facilities, and water mains and hydrant replacements. That was kind of, there were 3 things that kind of caught my eye. That was one. The second was the next point, to review the relationship of the fire department with other governmental agencies and private entities concerning topics which the commission feels presents a true and pressing need for the city's fire service, i.e. mutual aid and the fire rating system of the independent insurance office. And then the third was to recommend to the fire chief and city council action concerning initial adoption and future amendments to the fire prevention code, the building code, and other such ordinances which pertain to the prevention of fires within the community. So that was kind of interesting to just have a refresh on all of that. I'm not sure these are topics that we're engaged in on a monthly basis, but we certainly could be. One of the things that we were thinking about was maybe setting some goals around a few different things, some of which kind of relate to this, but not entirely. But I just wanted to open it up for any thoughts on the bylaws and how we operate, and how just with a refreshed reading of the bylaws, we might think about doing anything differently.
I thought when I read that, I thought that something came out like during the, remember when we were doing all the changes with like the Brown Act? And that something came out that was in relation to this 2.16 that said it wasn't necessarily our role any longer
Oh,
in
right.
San Rafael. Do you remember that? Don?
No,
Because this is that's a pretty broad statement. No?
May I pour some water on the whole conversation?
Absolutely. Okay. This is fire commission.
These that we are reading are dated December 10th, 2019.
Mhm.
Well, as an example of how things have changed, and it's minor, but multiple things have changed, would be section 2.7. Simply put, there is no compensation.
Right,
Well, there is now, if you
Yeah.
want it.
you,
Okay,
if
so
you choose.
I
yeah.
use that as an example of what was true in 2019.
Mhm.
A lot of things were that either haven't been modified, should be modified, or haven't even been discussed properly. For instance, you get into the role of the selection of commissioners. There is the language, if I can find it quickly, that I didn't underscore it when I read it. I should
Is it
have.
2.16?
But it's up to the city council at the, to appoint alternates if needed.
Mhm.
Well, you and I both know from our experience, there've been alternates on here since day one.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, there was one. It was the feeling of the city council at a given point to make it two.
Mhm.
So we have documents online. We have documents that are relative to the city clerk, to the city council, and then by virtue to the fire department, that say, flank, straight out, we'll have 5+2.
Mhm.
6 months later, it became 5+1.
Yeah,
Then, so that kind of information is still out there, and that's the danger of the internet. Because the city is posting all the time, the department posts all the time. And all the time really means all the time.
Mhm.
Once it's up, it never comes down. And a lot of things that go up don't go up with a date,
Mhm.
should. But they don't, everything should be as of given date and go from there.
Mhm.
But that's hard to find. So this is a good working platform. It is indeed. And we should probably take it, not necessarily today, but take time and go through a review.
Mhm.
Are these really now our roles? Do they fit the new management of the department?
Mhm.
The new thrust of the city council? Blah, blah, blah. And I can almost guarantee you, by the time we work our way through that and get it done and get it down on paper, something will change.
So is the suggestion that we consider edits, and changes, or?
Can I interject? Can I see a copy of the one that? So the most recent bylaw,
This is the one that came up on the link.
Pretty
that we
confident it's
sent out,
changed.
Yeah,
Cause I just printed it today.
and the bylaws are on the website,
right,
Senator Thomas, that's probably where you pull them.
the
from,
most recent one was adopted in 2022.
Okay, that's not the link that we got.
I don't have a date on this one though, so.
2022 would still be out of date because, like you pointed out, there's compensation.
I'll have to check, they may have had superseding bylaw, superseding, bylaws for all commissions, not just fire.
Most likely,
Mhm.
yeah, because when the Bible came out for all
Right,
commissions, bureaus,
right, that was last year.
yeah. Everything in the world changed then.
So can I recommend that I work with the city clerk's office to
Yeah.
find the most current
Current
version of the
copy.
bylaws,
Yep.
as well as any other rules or regulations that would pertain to this commission, and then I will email that to the group. And then get those.
Great, okay, and then we'll table this until. That's fine. One question that I had is. in addition to just the bylaws, would we want to set some goals for the year? And I know we started this conversation in January and we talked about a couple of things. One thing we spoke about is just a better relationship with the city council. And I think each of us picked a council member and the mayor for Stan that we would set up coffee with
You
just
got the
to.
mirror, or I got the mirror?
Oh, did you get?
I got the mirror, I thought.
Oh, really? Okay, we can go back.
You can
have
have it. No, it's,
We were gonna wait though, Chief was gonna
Right.
give us, okay,
Exactly, yeah, I think we're gonna wait until March, because Chief, I think there were some talking points, that would be available, that would be helpful to guide those discussions, so I think that could be one thing. Certainly the support of the foundation, and if they do events this year, if there's a grant feed or early next year, that could be another. The public awareness is one thing that I've been engaged with, and Chief and I have spoken about that, and Thomas and I have spoken about that. Another thing we could potentially do is each of us take on, because I think I remember this when I interviewed for the position, the council members and the mayor at the time were asking me about setting up a Firewise community in my neighborhood. And that could be a goal for all of us to do if there doesn't already exist. You don't already have one in the area. And then another thing too, and Chief, you talked about this last time, and I'm not sure if this is a goal of the fire commission, but we could certainly help support it, but just citizen engagement to help with things. And I think the LA fires kind of brought that to light too, right? The immediate time frame when the responders are needed immediately, before you get reinforcements, before you get strike teams or anything. They need to respond to the fire, but then you've got traffic concerns, like could citizens be brought in to help with some of those non-essential tasks? And how does a program like that run? And could we help? Could we, certainly all of us participate in that, but also help with awareness and recruitment and other things?
Yeah, no, all those things are great things, and I think as I'm sitting here thinking through this, and now that you've read the kind of like the bylaws, and then we're kind of in flux a little bit until we get confirmation of those. I really think that you should keep those in mind, but I think we should really look at those bylaws and come back next meeting and really hone in on this. Because of those things that you first spoke of, all those are hypercritical stuff that we're in the middle of right now, as far as the expansion of the organization, developments, financing, budgeting, any number of things that are going on, that just directly affect that. I kind of like those actually, because it kind of gives us firm ground on having those conversations with the council members.
Council.
So around those things on there, so I just want to hone that in there to see if that's changed much from those original bylaws on this. Because on yours, the one that you had for 2019, may I see that?
man. Backside too.
Yeah, because if you look at these, number one, it's really recommend concerning the future needs of the fire department and long range capital needs, including building, train facilities, water mains, and hydrant replacements. And I would say any kind of resources to that, and perhaps we add that to it. Review relationship with fire department agencies, mission through fire service, mutual aid, okay. ISO or fire chief. Recommend, here's the important one, to recommend to the fire chief and to city council actions concerning initial adoption or future amendments of fire prevention code. Those are all good ones because we're about to go to, I'm not sure if you, the executive order that Newsom just sent out. So as far as some real specific around construction and how we build around in the WUI areas. So I think we're just reinforcing those things on there and kind of figuring out. They figure out what we can do around those specific, 5 different things that are there would be interesting to do. But you don't think they've changed much from that
I don't think they've changed a lot.
or at all?
Um,
Of those specific things. I know that the rest of stuff,
Yeah,
no,
I don't
but
think
those specific objectives that we
I
should
don't-
meet.
Believe that those changed. I think it was mostly regarding.
Okay, so if we go back to the list of stuff that we have, can we look at that and compare and align it to these 5 main controls or directions? And if they align with those on there, then I think it's perfect. If they don't align with those, I think the extra one would be like the community service type of stuff. I think those that's almost like an extra thing, not necessarily a directive, but just participation on individuals' part as far as commission members.
Mhm.
I think, because I think that's, I don't think like the work that you're doing with us doesn't necessarily fall on the commission, but it certainly falls within stuff that we need the fire department, along with what I've described to you as the, force multiplier for the fire department.
Mhm.
The non-firefighting administrative or logistical support that we
Yeah.
need. Which is just an extra, kind of like, if I could look at it, this is the core group of stuff that we do, the rest is extra cherry on the top.
Mhm.
So I have a comment to make. You talked about people that would come out during a time of a crisis to help control traffic and whatnot. City of Folsom has a program that we do not have, that it's called CAP, Citizen Assisted Public Safety. And it's a 12-week training course. I took it back in the day. And it's people who do exactly that. They help if there's a terrible traffic accident, they come out and, I mean, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, they're there. It's to work, in Folsom, they work with both the police and the fire. But it's exactly what you're describing.
Mhm.
You know, they do events, attend different events that are sponsored by police or fire, but also that emergency services aspect of it, and I'm sure, I can't imagine that they wouldn't be willing to share that
Yeah,
information.
and I think that's what, that we're getting at, that's the cherry on top that we ask for your help, but like I said, at the core of it, but I think that all those are important aspects of it, and the reality is that's the help we need. If I was as a fire chief, if I asked the commission, that's the help I need at this. point.
Yeah.
Both the political help for sure, which is, the number one thing that you're here for sure on that one, and then secondary to that, we do the rest of stuff that's there. Sorry.
So my question would be, would the risk manager in San Rafael approve that? Because if I'm out there as a volunteer in the middle of the night and I get run over by somebody.
Well, I think I think it's a phase in, right, well, that's a specific, very specific thing, and right now I say, no, we're not prepared to do that. But if we offered you some training and we're 12 months into it and we identify that we only use them for this, meaning we only use you for this particular incident, it's not necessarily for directing traffic, it's a secondary line where there's police or whatever, somebody else doing that, and you're just holding a second line to make sure that nobody crosses the do not cross line or something like that. So there'll be specific parameters I would put in there. We would never ever put you in a dangerous situation or put any volunteer in a dangerous situation. So I think that would be a lot of communication. As a matter of fact, we currently now have it available to us to use our vegetation management folks in case there are power lines down that's gonna be there for a while, that we don't have to commit a fire engine there. We'll bring them down and give them some quick training on there to just be able to sit there and watch the power line for a little bit.
But are they employees?
Those are employees, but
Right.
we do have volunteer. We do have the availability of bringing on volunteers.
So they may have addressed that already. That risk manager may have a volunteer added to your workers' compensation, which you.
Correct, and
addressed
more than
that.
likely, Thomas, you don't know offhand, but we do have the volunteer position, and I'm assuming that's already been.
Or.
Anything, no,
Oh, yeah, we have volunteer positions and,
in the city.
yeah, and we've, the last time I can remember volunteers is during our PS events where we lost power here in San Rafael for a few days. We had volunteers from CERT come out and help us manage our charging stations and cooling centers. At that time, because city staff was out in the field kind of managing things, and so we relied on CERT to kind of just help greet people at the door and kind of supervise at our community center. So there's definitely precedent for us using the volunteer. I think most of our OUS goes through CERT programs or other kind of programs that are out there already.
And we are revamping that program.
CERT,
Yes,
and how many people do we have in CERT right now?
it could be as little as 5 and as much as 100, depending on how you look at a list. If people signed up, we probably have hundreds. If we have actual like a core group, we don't have that right now. Part of it is because we haven't had consistent staffing for those positions to support that.
Got it. I'm CERT certified. I went through the process. Yeah.
But I am, not necessarily that I was gonna say this is part of my chief's report, but I'm happy to report that by the end of this week, we'll have career positions in there, so we won't longer have a transient workforce in there. We will actually have career positions. We're having 5 career positions and 3 in vegetation management and 2 in the OES to follow through with the CERT program. And now I feel like I'm like, we actually got you in a good foothold. What was happening, they worked for us for a year, we get this program ramped up, ready to go. And then at month 13, they're out of here.
Mm.
They found another job. So it really was unsustainable and really like kind of a lot of false starts and a lot of things, and really created a lot of frustration with our citizens, especially CERT volunteers. So I'm happy to say that we have the staffing for it and now plan moving forward for like long-term type of solution.
So it sounds like somebody's addressed, like your risk managers addressed the volunteer concept and it's tagged to your workers' compensation, which is cool,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
opens the door.
Maybe we could learn from Folsom. how to
Yeah,
do it.
and I think I think that would be a cool thing to take on. And perhaps as we go through this exercise, maybe that's one of the things that we task the commission to kind of.
Yeah.
Be in charge of the volunteer program, is how they want to design. Obviously, we're gonna take the logistics and the operation, we'll operationalize it, but the concept there.
Well, we have a battalion chief that lives in Folsom. He should be able to get the door open.
Yeah.
So, I think, so I'm, because of my previous career, so I've had some a minor playbook in such as, I know how to refill Scott bottles, so I've been shown in case we need Scott bottles, I know how to get into here, I know how to get the utility vehicle, I know how to bring Scott bottles. But I also think that our biggest role as just members of the community and fire commission is just show up when there's a need. For instance, the scenario would be like the Aldersley needs to be evacuated. We're gonna need a lot of help just coordinating
Oh, yeah.
things. And I think just to have these conversations are really good because, you know, we're not able to plan for everything, but we do have scenarios that are gonna happen. And things that happen at 4 PM and 4 AM are completely different in terms of who's available.
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to say, oh, that'll never happen. Well, guess what? I don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I say, like,
It
if
could-
you could help me right now, because we're gonna have some people die here if we don't work together on it. So I'll never say never, and I'll never say, oh, that'll never happen, or you're not trained to that. I'll say, I will keep you safe, but I need your help. So things that definitely, in the past 5 years, think that our attitude has changed towards using people to help us. Yeah. Before it was like, no, we don't need your help. No, say it, but we kind of need everybody's help in this
And
situation.
it could be a lot of different things too, right? It could be CERT, it could be explorers, right?
Yeah.
And you can pull them in and others, so, okay. So,
And one last comment, but Chief Bernard brought up a point, it's an extended operation. How are we gonna feed people?
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal on there, and I thought of that also, because we had a core group of volunteers away from the CERT, but there's the logistical volunteers that we have available that have a credit card already, and probably have a couple contracts already to some restaurants that they could go at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we need this, and here's the credit card, and they figure that part out. That relieves a lot of pressure from the fire chief or for anybody else to try to get that done on there. So, and like I said, I'll go back to where I came from. My original fire department still has volunteers. If you're 14 years old or 84 years old, you're still a volunteer there, and you figure out how you help. And that one, it was exactly that. They actually, once a year, would actually make food and freeze it for the year, because there was no, like on storm, like the day, like the storm is coming up, more than like a lot of volunteers come to the fire station, and the logistical volunteers just cook all day.
Hmm.
And they serve coffee, and then basically just, it's very community-like, it helps a lot for the firefighters. They're not worried about where their meals are coming from like that. They're just out running calls, and then we got it to the point where, you'd had your half an hour break to go get some to eat at the fire station, and somebody would be there with some dry clothes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So those are all like nice things to do. And as a kid, I think it's a good overall goal to have to reach to that point on there. I know that, we're all professional firefighters, but at the end of the day, food, shelter, those things are like still critical, essential human being type of things that we still need as firefighters. That's what we're going out there doing, so.
Yeah, there's such a rich history of volunteering around all things firefighting, and bringing the community into that would be great. And I think there are a lot of really interesting stories about Los Angeles, how people just really stepped up and helped out. Like there was that actor, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but he was interviewed on, because he was famous, the actor from like the 1980s, can't remember his name, but he was helping direct a lot of different things, especially related to the abandoned cars. So, Okay, all right, so kind of circling back then to the bylaws and then potential goals for the year. So Thomas, you'll just get confirmation on the absolute latest bylaws, get those circulated to us. We can read those between now and the March meeting. And then maybe have a conversation, how some goals can align. We can develop some goals that align to the bylaws.
Yeah, or the goals that we already have, then prioritizing, which ones we think that's a priority, or which ones we could take bilaterally. If bilaterally, like, we could be working on one, but the relationship that you will build with your council member, that can happen simultaneously,
Yeah,
so. And then I do ask that you also ask city council members what they want from us.
yeah,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
gotta work both ways also, so I think that's a strong conversation point also, as you guys are out there, having conversation with them. What do they want from the fire department? What do they want from their commissions? And more likely we're aligned, but every once in a while you miss it, like, all right, we didn't think about that.
okay,
And I don't have that connection with them, but to me, my boss is the city manager, and then the city manager goes to, so I don't have the direct line. As a matter of fact, you guys have the direct line to the
Yeah.
council members.
okay,
Chair, so I did email the city clerk and she was very responsive and said that the current bylaws that were attached were not the most recent.
oh,
But if we refresh the page now, they have been updated, and the only change is regarding the stipend, so they've added that language regarding the stipend.
okay, so everything else.
Everything
is the
else on the
same.
one that was on the page is the same, and
Okay,
then I did confirm with her, there is the rules and procedures, and the rules and regulations that were adopted in 2023. For those of you who were here last year, I think 2 years ago, they did a presentation on those. Those are still current, so I will share those with the commission as well, just as a refresher. But those two documents are the only documents outside of the municipal code that pertain to this commission.
okay, all right, that sounds good. And then in terms of the goals that I mentioned, how do people feel about those? And are there other goals that we might want that fit into the bylaws and some of the things we've talked about that we might consider, or any of the goals that I mentioned, things that people don't feel are appropriate?
Would you mind repeating them?
Sure. So the first one is just I think this one probably not much of an argument with, but the one-on-one relationships that we'll build with the council and mayor. And that will happen at least after March, once we get a little bit more of the talking points, and I think that's a great idea to ask them what they want from the commission, from the department. So that's one. Number two is just support with the Fire Foundation, and as we have done for years, right? Any events that they're doing, grad feed or otherwise. And then public awareness, which I've been taking the lead with, and helping just communicating with the community about fire safety. And I'll mention in my report, but just some ideas coming out of the LA fire that might be relevant to that. Another goal could potentially be for each of us, and this falls a little bit out of that, but to set up firewise communities within our neighborhoods where we live. And then the last one was this citizens, what did you say was called, Donna? I like that.
Citizens Assisting Public Safety, it's called CAPS.
Yeah.
But I didn't, if we have CERT, that could probably do the same thing without reinventing the wheel. Because CERT is specific to fire, yes, Chief?
Not
No,
Disaster.
Does both?
Disaster.
Okay,
Yeah.
But
And,
it falls
and,
into the same bucket. I kind of agree with you that maybe just, that would be a way to really expand the relevance of CERT, is to
I don't know that
kind
we
of
need
go in that
both.
direction.
and the other thing is that, one of the things I've been having a lot of conversations with Quinn is kind of, I don't want to say scrap the CERT, but essentially I'm saying scrap CERT and make it to figure out what we need in the city center of in the community here and design it around that. Instead of, there's a fair amount of bureaucracy that goes on with CERT and on there, and I go, well, why don't we just, let's not look at that. Let's look at the components that we actually need here and then add to whatever we need here, like very specific to what does San Rafael need? And, you know, there's some things, there's a baseline for everything, but there's also some specific things here that we need here that are much different than any other place. So kind of designing that part of it. One of is certainly outreach for the Spanish speakers. The other one is that we have a flood zone area also, and the other one is that the obviously the wildfire component, that's a huge one also in there. So around those components, designing the system that it actually works here And once again, I'll go back to the 14 to 84 years old. I want to have a system that people can participate in it. Doesn't matter what age or what their background is, they can participate in something like that here.
Good.
Question. When we started talking about CERT, I did a quick look and came up with Marin County CERT,
Mm,
an organization called Ready Marin. And it seems to be, it purports to be CERT. And the umbrella is completely Marin.
Hmm.
Now, we have had in the past and kind of do on paper our own for San Rafael. Is it, or is it?
I think it's under that umbrella.
The Marin umbrella?
You know, what I would suggest is that maybe one person be assigned, one commissioner be assigned to reach out and work with Sarah or Nate, who are both disaster preparedness. That's their roles with the city, and to fact find with them, find out exactly, you know, what the status is of CERT or other disaster preparedness groups, and the volunteer organization, which is actually run by Corey Bytoff. Is that under his authority?
He does the volunteer program for the city, but I would think that's certainly.
Not CERT,
entirely-
but if we're looking at other volunteer type functions, would it
Yes,
fall under his?
yes, he manages the city's volunteer program.
So, you know,
Mhm.
if you were to establish a subcommittee,
mhm.
you know, I could direct them to our disaster preparedness coordinators
Mhm.
to, you know, become more educated and enlightened and
Yeah.
maybe figure out strategies so that it aligns with their goals as well.
Yeah, and maybe that could also fit into one of the things I mentioned last month about having guests come into our fire commission meetings too, so all of us can hear from them and ask questions. So the process then we need to form a
I
subcommittee.
mean,
to-
what I would do is I would, you know, as you talk about all these great ideas, is to establish subcommittees
Right.
so that
Yeah.
the momentum continues and they can
Yeah.
report back at your next meeting. So you're not waiting to the next meeting
Yeah.
to make another decision on what you might want to do. There is progress being made between
Okay.
meetings. That's just a
No, I
suggestion. to
appreciate
consider.
that, I think that's a great idea. Do we have a volunteer?
I would be happy to volunteer to get it started. Adding quickly that I have a hole in this year where I'll disappear. Mid-May to mid-June. But we need time on both sides, so.
I can help on that, because I've implemented Firewise communities in cities before, and I'm certain, yeah.
And also because we do have Firewise communities already in place in San Rafael, you can get a good idea of what's in place and maybe where the needs are.
Yeah,
my
my
community
community is one.
So, yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, you live up the hill from me. Yeah, you guys have those placards.
Do you think we could potentially have the individual that you have mentioned, chief, come to our March meeting? Because one of the things that I think we had talked
Why
about
don't I,
was,
you know, starting, I'll say tomorrow. First part of next week. Check in with you for the names and contacts. You and I can talk. And,
sure, okay,
and invite whomever it seems appropriate, and.
I think we had talked about when we bring in a guest, like, we're gonna alternate between being in a station 1 month and then next month.
Yeah, 'cause next month.
So when we're at PSC, then that's when we bring in guests.
Sure, and then next meeting would be the appropriate time.
Okay,
But I think it's good to bring in like Sarah and Nate, because we can find out what they do.
yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say right now, so they probably are finding out right now that we are restructuring both of their divisions.
Okay.
So there's probably gonna be a little bit of angst in there because we will have some people that won't have a job after this.
Okay.
So I just need to,
Maybe we'll table those.
yes,
That's
so, but it's all for the good, which we need to get away from the fixed term, we get to into full-time career employees now, for the reasons I just said. But I will come back and let you know when we're ready to roll on that, but that is an overall rule that we need to do, it's not an option. We need to do that for sure.
Maybe we can suggest to the chiefs to, maybe suggest a yes.
Yeah,
You know, I had an idea for a guest is reading through the municipal code, and it talks about buildings, training facilities, water mains, and hydrant replacements. You know, water mains and hydrant replacements are a little outside of the scope of the fire commission. However, that's a very central topic right now after the LA fires, right? And I think it would be advantageous to us if we invited a representative of the water district to come and give a presentation on the state and status of the water system as it serves San Rafael. I think that could be very informative.
Yes.
So if you'd like, I try and arrange that for a future meeting.
That would be great.
Matt,
So,
Matt,
Oh, yeah,
you know, I'm
the
trying,
chief of South City.
yes,
Yeah.
he would be the person to ask.
Well, I think I'd go after somebody in their operations department.
Okay,
Matt
did you all
Jensen.
see where the fire hydrants in Pomona were being stolen? Did you all see that on the news this week? Yeah, true story. They're stealing fire hydrants in the city of Pomona. Person called the police, no one ever came. It took the thieves a half hour to undo the fire hydrant. And no one ever even stopped them. And of course, they're selling it for scrap metal. And my husband said whoever the scrap metal yard is should refuse to take it, but
Yeah, there's been a terrible problem over the years with the theft of
Unbelievable.
brass hydrants and brass caps.
unbelievable.
Tiburon had a dozen brand new brass hydrants in reserve on the side of their station. This was probably over 10 years ago. All were stolen one night.
Wow.
And nearly every single brass hydrant cap was stolen throughout most of the cities in Marin.
I don't think this was for the brass, this was just for the metal.
Well, yeah, then they're selling it to recyclers
Yeah.
or precious metal.
okay, so any further discussion then? Good
Just,
discussion on
one
biological goals?
quick question, we kind of did the open houses under the fire commission. Are we continuing those, or are those one and done, or your thoughts?
That's, I had asked Thomas to reach out to you, kind of to have that discussion on what do you think we need to do? We did have a staff meeting yesterday, and they felt that instead of creating new events, that we should focus on marketing the events we currently have, which we have for events throughout, and then marketing the 150th through that aspect of there. With two changes. One is continue to do the parade and figure that part out, and the other one, having figure out something at the end of the year type of party in December of this. So, but certainly, I'm willing to hear anything. If we feel we need to do the open houses, or I'm kind of waiting for somebody to say what they want to do. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to help organize them, all you gotta do is give me the word. right?
Yeah, but then that's what they're, like everybody said, like it's kind of, we got the template down. No, it's just like figuring out a date and that's it. Like,
Yeah, Fire Prevention Week is always a good time to have an open house,
Yeah,
Mm,
which is the first week of October.
and I know Captain Alvarez wanted to do a 9/11 service again.
okay, now maybe we'll hit up to 9/11. The event I just talked about is the parade, the 9/11. And then the Fire Prevention Week. And then the end of the year party, or the end of the year, celebration, so that's 4 or 5 events already.
Okay.
And let's see, then, but I'm also, like I said, if there's other suggestions, I'm more than willing to hear about, for sure. And support it for sure.
What's the end of your party? Or celebration?
Just something that we're thinking about, just having some kind of, what was suggested as a firefighters ball type of deal, where everybody gets dressed up and we.
So a new event, not
Yeah.
something we've done before.
Correct,
Okay,
correct, just to celebrate the 150th.
okay. Great, yeah, that sounds great. Great, thank you, John. So anything else on this agenda item? Okay, good conversation, let's move on. So, Donna, any updates on the Fire Foundation?
Yes, thanks to firefighter Michael McCarthy, I've made huge headway in recruits. I have 3 potential new board members. They're not on, but they're potential, attending the Fire Foundation meeting next week. I have 2 people committed to be formal volunteers. I put together a list of committees that would be needed for the foundation. We're nowhere's near done, because I would like to see truly an army of people working for the foundation, and not people that come and go, but people that are really committed. But the board was my #1 objective, to solidify the board. And I'm confident all 3 are gonna be players, in which case we're gonna be alive.
It's great.
That's great,
Yeah.
congratulations.
I could not have done it without firefighter McCarthy. It could not have happened. All of those people have come from his network. I will also be meeting with the firefighters association in May with the general meet. Again, we've still got to be pulling people in that are truly committed to wanting to help, so that when we want to stage an event, we have a crew of people that'll step it up and make it happen. It just, you can't do it with 6 people.
Yeah.
It's physically impossible. So making good headway.
Good.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, anything else from the foundation?
No, if any of you know anyone that you want me to tap on the shoulder and see if I can pull them into the mix, just let me know. I'm not shy about asking for help.
That sounds good. I think we covered some of this, Commissioner Chung, the 150th anniversary subcommittee.
So the parade that we were talking about last year, we did, chief asked to table that. Because we had just so many things going on, so we tabled it to this year, and then as it turns out, Thomas mentioned that this, Thomas, can you expand on what the city manager?
Sure, so the city is also obviously celebrating its 150th anniversary as well, and I am on that committee representing the fire department and kind of helping plan that. Banners will go up downtown soon celebrating that, and there'll be some other items, but they caught wind of our desire to host a parade, 150th parade. And the committee all very much were very excited to do that. And given the heavy lift in order to do the parade, including permitting, insurance, overtime for PD, public works, and all of that goes involved, we thought it'd be a great idea to join forces with the city so that they could help cut through some of that red tape and help us organize that. So that committee is exploring the idea of hosting a parade. Tentatively, Labor Day has been thrown out, but nothing official has happened. It still needs approval from city council and city leadership. So as soon as the more information, we'll provide that.
The biggest stumbling block is who's gonna pay for the permit? The cost of insurance, if the city will waive that, and who's gonna pay for the fee overtime? But
Well-
now that the city has approached us, well, those problems kind of go away.
Just tagging on to their parade.
Their
now.
parade, yeah, so it's their parade that we're gonna be a part of, as opposed to starting from scratch.
What's that time?
Well, we're thinking Labor Day perhaps, but we're kind of open to suggestions.
So I have a comment. You're already talking about 2 other events for the fire department in September. Move it up to the 4th of July, so you're hitting a different time of the year and getting more coverage throughout the year. Because you just got through talking about 2 other gigs for September.
So the problem is Larkspur has a big, huge 4th of July
Who
parade.
does?
Larkspur, Port Madera, and Novato also has a huge 4th of July parade.
So,
Sausalito also does one. So that was discussed in the committee about doing a 4th of July, and that was discussed. I think that the committee felt that the time constraint, given the,
Got it.
we don't have the expertise in throwing a parade, so that might be a little bit hurried at this point.
uh-huh.
So the Labor Day bought us a little bit more time, but nothing set in stone, so I think we're open to it. But yeah, I think a couple of other communities had parades are set that day, which didn't turn the committee off necessarily. They were kind of excited to try to poach people and have Santa Fe residents be able to come out here, but I think the timing constraint, because any parade will have to go to city council because of the road closures. All road closures must be approved by city council, so it does take some effort and long-term planning.
I've learned when we started these conversations last year, the wheels of the city are not fastest. So,
Not everyone is as fast as the city clerk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the loose parade committee is me and Thomas and Danielle so far, so.
You know, another, we talked about this at our staff meeting, Chief and Thomas, was the possibility, instead of a parade, if the city opts not to do a parade, that maybe we have a static display. And then we close off D Street fronting the PSC, and we invite other agencies with their antique apparatus and do a static display out in front of the PSC. And combine that with a mini open house and some pub ed activities and things like that, and kind of try and make it all one big event instead of, like Donna mentioned, several separate events.
Like a street fair or kind of like a
Yeah.
block party.
Yeah.
Public Safety Center never had a grand opening because of COVID. But the intention was with PD to do a block party, close the street down, balance house, you know, fight the community out for a party to celebrate the opening. That never happened, so if the parade idea falls through, we could look at doing something, a kind of a city fire kind of celebration there.
Good. All right, anything else? All set? All right, let's move on to current media coverage. Commissioner Burford, I think you had submitted one of the articles, right, about fire nozzles and hydrants in front of residential homes, privately owned.
Story that I read, was interest in, and apparently some people already have private, AKA it's on their property, presumably only accessible to their property, fire hydrants. Okay, so then I read that and I went, oh, wait a minute. How do you do that? So I'm just, all I'm doing is taking the concept and throwing it out for a little open discussion, and that is, how do you do that? Water is only available from MMWD. The hydrants, quote unquote, that were discussed in the article were only 2-inch feet. So how big is a fire hydrant feet?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's a minimum of 4 and up to 6, but I have a feeling I didn't read that article. I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way. Go ahead and finish. Well, what's very common is, what's called private fire hydrants. So on properties that are, that have structures set back well away from a public roadway, they're required by the fire code to have, hydrants, spaced 400 feet apart and within 250 feet of the farthest exterior wall of the structure as a person would travel. So possibly with large estates, they're set way back off from the public roadway, up long driveways. They're required to have a fire hydrant located, you know, a certain distance off the street. That's called a private hydrant. That resident owns that hydrant. They take responsibility for it. Maintenance, replacement, assurance that it is operable. We have those in San Rafael as well. Mainly they're on commercial properties. So if you have a very large commercial property with like several warehouses or a hotel complex, that's a good example. You have hydrants around the perimeter, right? Well, those are private hydrants. They're on private property. They're off the public main. Like you said, it's off MMWD, but they're private hydrants owned by the property owner. It's kind of it's a component of the fire protection system, the fire sprinkler system, the fire standpipe system, and private hydrants. So that could be, I'm not saying that's what's going on down there because I didn't see the article, but if you had a long driveway with a huge estate or a couple of estates up the top, they would be required probably to have a hydrant spaced at certain intervals off of the street. And those would be private hydrants.
I can't even remember who wrote the article and I didn't bring it with me.
It's the LA Times article.
Okay, it seemed to have this overtone that those with a little more luxurious properties have or are certainly interested now in getting additional water support. It was just referred to as private fire hydrant.
But like you stated, it's all off the same water system.
Sure.
Okay, unless the resident has their own static water source.
Right.
A tank and a
Well,
pump.
then my mind was going, okay, we have loosely knit, that's probably not the right term, procedures that we want citizens to follow during an evacuation. One of them is turn off your water. And if you know how to, turn off your gas before you leave your property, if it's in danger of being flooded. As he pointed out at the last meeting, houses will burn down and all of a sudden the water is spewing all over the place. The pressure for the system in the area just goes, it gets tanked, no pun intended. So if here we're saying on the one hand, we want you to turn your water off because we need that water in a bigger sense in the area. And yet there's this interest in having your own private fire hydrant, and I'm going, apples, oranges, how does this all fit together? That's the only reason I brought it up for discussion. In my case, I have done it in my head, I have not done it in reality, but I will. Is I'm going to position a couple of, maybe 3 or 4 agricultural sprinkler heads on a system that I will build privately on my property and feed it with a generator powered pump from water out of my pool.
Cool.
Cause I have 22,000 gallons of water sitting there, and you bet I'm gonna put it to work if my house is in danger.
Love it. That's great.
But, you know, that doesn't address anything except my own interest in protecting my own property. It'll leave it there. So,
Did the
That's a
tenders do
really-
that as well? Like, you know, we talked last month, I think, about the tender, is that what they're
Water
called?
tenders,
Yeah.
tanker trucks.
Right,
tenders,
yeah, where they'll pull the salt water out of the bay, but it's probably better to have
Well,
fresh water.
can use solar. Chiefs the chief over in Berkeley has an amazing system that drafts water out of the bay.
Yeah, we have two 5,000, or I had two 5,000 or 6,000 gallon pumps that are on the skid mount. You get the skid mounted, and then we had 5 miles of 12-inch line.
Yeah.
Five
San
miles.
Francisco has like extensive alternate water.
Yeah,
supply.
Okay.
San Francisco just bought a system similar to that. They've actually put it on a truck, so it's on their truck, on an
Yeah.
actual engine that
They
looks like
spend a lot of money.
yeah, a lot of money.
But
I mean,
Lieutenant,
that's-
you also have that high pressure dedicated water main
Yeah,
system. Too. That is
yeah.
impressive.
But it's 150 years in the
Wow.
making.
And then you also have the cisterns.
Yeah, that's all
So
part of
there's
it.
multiple backup sources in San Francisco. Very impressive.
But it was for earthquake. Nobody thought of it as being for protection in a wildland park.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Burford, for sharing that article. Let's jump to the commission member reports. So I'll say mine for last. Commissioner Johnson, your report.
So, yeah, lots going on around fire and insurance. I don't know, you know, it's interesting for every property application for a commercial entity that you send into an insurance company, there's a question on every building. It says, you know, who is the fire department, what is the protection class? And so I don't know if it would be interesting to this group. There's a couple of underwriters that I work with at Travelers. They're part of the National Property Program. And I was just with them the other day and I go, so do you have the ability to look at San Rafael? And I've told you guys this before in bottle and take a look at what the wildfire load was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, and now. They go, yeah, sure, we do that all the time. We can do that. And they're on St. Raphael's and they're also on St. Vincent's School for Boys, right? So they've underwritten those accounts in here. And they look at, like, they're underwriting you, really. And so if there was ever an interest, I could probably get Catherine Nickel and Jamie Campbell to come here and just speak to you guys, right? Because it's a hard concept for you guys, because if you look at the earnings report from Chubb and Travelers and the Hartford, it's off the charts, man. These companies have made more money. I think Chubb just posted their record in their history. They've made more money in the last year. And you're looking at it and you go, but nobody will insure the state, right? It's complicated. So they could explain some of the difference, right? The big difference is commercial and homeowners, right? Homeowners is highly regulated and it's tied to the legislation in the state of California, so they can't increase their rates. So they're not coming back until they do that. On the commercial side, they've made so much money that the LA fire isn't gonna necessarily be a factor. Right? They're profitable and if you look at the number that you look at an insurance company is like, if there's a number associated with the fire department here in San Rafael, it's their combined ratio. It's their profit plus their expenses, right? And so Travelers is running at an 86, Chubb's is like an 84. That means that they are extremely profitable. Well, during 5 years ago, they were running at 104. Every dollar that they took out, they paid $1.14, right? They're the wildfires and the losses, but they've changed their book. The valuations of property has gone up, and their pricing has gone up so much. There's nowhere left for them to hide the money. So their board of directors stockholders are saying, your combined ratios in 86, you have the capacity to write more insurance, right? So you need to be doing that. It's kind of complicated, but you know, maybe having those guys here to explain. And they could actually, I don't know if they could show it, but they could certainly hand out the mapping of, San Rafael, because every underwriter that underwrites a restaurant here or a school or whatever it is, they look at, where's this located? San Rafael Fire Protection Class 1. So they are underwriting you and your team and you guys, right? And that's, I don't know if you knew that or you thought of that.
Yeah, and do they do any like analysis on, this is a question that's been posed to us, or posed to me by our vegetation management. Is there analysis that they actually do on the work that we're doing on there around vegetation management, home hardening and that kind of stuff?
100% is the first question there, and I had somebody ask me today, they go, what's the brush going on that property? I had to insure a big shopping center in Los Angeles during fires, and it was completely vacant, and it was a tough placement. But so, the first question is, what's the brush going on that location? I don't get it for homeowners, but on commercial properties, and it, you know, it's a 60, anything below 60 is good. Right, so they want to know that number.
And then is there anything that we can do to ensure that number stays below 60?
That would be a question for an insurance company. As a broker, I don't know the answer to that question. But certainly fire-wise is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because one of the cities that I insure, we created a drone video just to show the work that the Firewise has done.
Yeah.
And it was really well received in London.
See, that's the interesting part of it. People are less scared of losing their houses, but they're more scared of losing their insurance.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my insurance.
Yeah.
I'm with farmers.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big problem.
It is a huge problem. And I do think that legislatively, Murray County, especially around the NWPA has done a good job at lobbying and ensuring that we're pushing our agenda here specifically to Murray County, because this, I would have to say, is probably one of the safest counties around. Just because of the work that's being done every single day around vegetation management and the resources we have.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be really important because everybody looked at, and underwriters are just part of the public as well, right? They looked at that relationship between the LA mayor and the LA fire department, and they go, that is very dysfunctional, right? That did not work, and and as a result, look what happened, right? So they wanna be confident, they're gonna look at San Rafael, what is the reputation, it's gonna speak volumes. And I don't know how to share that with the mayor and you, but hearing it from those, I mean,
How could the mayor not have? Any mayor with a brain had to figure that one out. After what happened, she's gotta know. Come on, she knows. She
Yeah.
knows how important it is that she step it up.
the reputation of fire departments is gonna become crucial,
Yeah,
I believe, in the next few years, just as important as a brush board.
which is why it's so imperative that we network with city council.
Yeah,
It is
It
key.
is, yeah.
Educate, educate, educate.
Yeah, and the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything
So
else?
that's it, that was just kind of a general deal, so I'll see if those two.
That would be great, yeah, and maybe, I mean, depending on the guests that we have for the March meeting, maybe it's the
Whenever,
May
yeah,
meeting?
yeah, because Catherine lives over the hill, she lives
Okay,
It's great.
nearby.
yeah,
I would love to hear
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
I think I would like to invite our Quinn for sure. and maybe
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Kate
Yeah.
To listen in on that.
Yeah, because he's a real sharp
Yeah.
women.
And it's a real issue that we're gonna have to face with, number one, on review and recommend concerning future needs.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
number one thing that we have as our agenda.
She's gonna say, yeah, I insure that school for this amount of money, and I wanna make sure that school is not gonna burn down. What do I look at?
yeah,
Perfect.
okay,
Thank you for sharing.
yes, thanks very much. Commissioner Burford.
Nothing to add. I was a courier this afternoon and presented the foundation with a check for $1,000 from my local property owners association.
Nice.
Well, that's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
I was happy to say, thank you, here you are.
Wow.
So they do that once a year. They do $1,000 to police and 1,000 to fire. Once a year.
It's really nice.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's great. Which HOA is that?
Fair Hills Property Owners Association.
And that was to the Fire Foundation?
Mhm.
Or the, okay.
It's great.
So you guys have an HOA up there? Okay.
Well, no, it's an FPOA. There's the property owners and homeowners are two different commodities. Homeowners are regulated. Property owners is more of a social organization. It's a 501c3. So you gotta dance to all of those rules. But the homeowner aspect, homeowner association aspect is not part of our organization. And it makes a world of difference.
Cool. Okay. Commissioner Chung.
So, a lot of our conversations with the chiefs and I, we always talk about staffing, future needs, same with firefighters. We're all on the same page. Was able to have, a 30-minute conversation with Councilman Hill. Just to introduce myself, I just said, coffee, want to talk about future needs, but talk about LA wildfires as it affects San Rafael. We had a very good conversation. He's former fire commissioner, which I didn't know, but we talked about growth and how to keep up with growth. We talked about, he thought it was timely that I reached out to him because he was meeting with a lot of the, Marin County, the city officials, and they were talking about wildfire. So, we talked about, alternate water supply, like, each fire station here in Marin has full pumps like what Stan has. There's 14 hydrants, purple hydrants, Las Colinas Fire District for firefighting only. It's brackish water, so it's not for drinking. And we talked about, he was meeting with Congressman Huffman, so he was gonna bring up the point of a long range, what are we doing to get wildfire infrastructure in the future? Start that conversation. So he said that he would bring that up. So, anyways, it was a good conversation. And, you know, I preface with all this is that the big reveal is coming out on March 10th.
March 10th, or do we modify the date, you mean the standards?
That's a response, yeah.
Is it the fourth?
March
Oh,
10th
I
is what I
just-
had on.
Rodney, you-
Yeah.
But it said it's coming out in
Yeah.
March. I didn't get into any of the hard numbers, other than the fact that 55 and 56 go out of service to staff and ambulance. He wasn't aware of that. It happens more often, so I'm just trying to lobby for more staffing. We want to add an engine, we want to add an ambulance. He's totally on board with us. So it's like hearts and minds as we've talked.
Yes.
So anyways, yeah, so that's where it's at.
Great, thank you. Commissioner McCusker.
One thing we haven't talked about today is the fact that CAL FIRE is bankrupt. Yeah,
that?
well, I mean, they're bankrupt. They're asking today in the news, they need $1 billion cash infusion. And it's been widely known, they are bust after the LA fires. So get ready, folks, all of our premiums on all of our properties are gonna go up, because how are we as a state gonna subsidize it? All our taxes will have to go up because we are a state, right? We can't abandon part of our state because we have to have CAL FIRE, right? Excuse me, California Fair Plan, excuse me, I wasn't saying it correctly, forgive me. Yeah, California Fair Plan is bankrupt, forgive me.
Yeah,
And so that entity needs major cash infusions.
Well, they're gonna assess the insurance companies that write policies in the state of California. That's where their money's gonna
And
come from.
right, and then what's the domino effect of that?
So each company is gonna give them cash to make those
Understood.
claims, and then on a go-forward basis,
I would think that we, as citizens of Marin County, should expect that our insurance premiums will absolutely go up.
oh yeah, they're gonna go through the roof.
Thank you, that's what I was trying to say.
Oh, they're gonna go through the roof. We're
Yeah.
gonna be the new Florida. Yeah, that's why everybody's afraid, terrified of, I'm not turning a claim in. Right? You're not. Not with your brush short.
I think his idea of having the infrastructure in place to be able to move money out of your pool onto your property. There was a guy in, I wanna say Malibu or Santa Monica that did that and saved his house.
Yeah.
And that's a really smart idea for all of the citizens.
he is, by the way, that, the one you're talking about, and there are others around. He's a small company and he buys all the necessary equipment to have your own gas-powered pump and hose and siphon on wheels on a hand truck. And they're like $4,000 to $5,000 for the whole rig. Years ago, I looked at, the guy here in California was making them at that time, they were $1,500, give you an idea. And keeping your garage or your pump house for your pool or stuff like that. And all hell breaks loose, you wheel it out and start it up and throw the siphon in and you start doing what you do until.
We'll have to do a workshop for the community on that.
Yeah. But anyway.
It's a great
yeah,
idea.
He was ready because he makes them and sells. And they're out there.
Arbor
There's a
Freight
lot of
sells
stuff like that.
control.
There's a company in Sonoma County
Yeah.
that would be very happy to ring your house with sprinklers and to make it look like it's taking a shower. You know, where the water comes from is another story, but
Yeah, and you know, and these are all great ideas, but at the end of the day, if fire doesn't start on a windy day, then we don't have to deal with this.
Right,
If we've done a good job at home hardening and make sure that we have the very best modern, non-combustible materials with the very most modern laws around it, so that the fire does go through there, it's not gonna burn the house down. That is the best deal. If we maintain vegetation around where there's potential dangerous areas, eucalyptus groves or around power lines or that kind of stuff, or areas that we know catch fire, then that's what we need to do. And I would have to say that that's what we've done essentially here. One of the inherent problems is we have really difficult problem here in the fire service is quantifying the negative. We could probably tell you how many fires we ran, but we can't tell you how many fires we didn't run. Every day we have rangers that are out there dealing with people with ignition sources in vegetation areas that go in there, grab the stuff, grab the ignition sources and basically kick them out of there. And then we rapidly go in there, clean it up and do some heavy vegetation management. This is all within a 24-hour period that we're doing this kind of stuff. So you will never hear that stuff in there. But really hyper-focusing on those type of aspects, so we don't have to get the water tenants, so we don't have to get the water lines, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is great, and I do it myself. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do is that fire doesn't start. And you should change your behavior and all that kind of stuff in there. But one of the things I have to tell people now is we're in an evolution of human beings, and we've evolved through a lot of, and that's why we're resilient to a lot of things in there. And if you really take a deep breath in that, we're in the middle of that. We're evolving to something else based on what it is, and a lot of it has to be on our behaviors. On our behaviors of allowing people like the fire department to go on your property to clear some vegetation, just because that's what we do. Behavior like if I can't get out in a car fast enough on a windy day, more than likely it's a good night to go to the city and go watch a show and spend the night at a hotel in the city. Because I'm away from the vegetation area, so those are the behavioral changes that we're looking at, also changing the laws around that. But really, at the end of the day, we need to hyper focus on that part of it, to have a good fire-wise communities, good education and those kind of stuff. That really is where the important part of it is.
do we still, or did we ever have a drop dead date on wood shingle roof?
Yeah, when is that, chief? I don't recall.
Twenty
exactly.
twenty-seven, I forget what the exact date, but it's 2027.
And was there not language that it had to happen if the property sold?
I don't
Pretty
think it's
sure.
upon sale, but I think there's a deadline of when that roof has to be changed out.
Okay.
That's under Queen's division, so not 100% up to speed on.
Yeah, we have, I think there was 177 properties that were identified in that, and we do have $7,500 that we grant people to replace their roofs. It's not a lot compared to the roof, but it helps for
It's a
sure.
lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, but it's not, I mean, I replaced my roof,
You know,
50 grand on my roof.
It's interesting that we're saying roofs, but there's homes in Terra Linda that are shingle homes. And I'm like, okay, so you take the roof off, and make a tile, but you got shingles on the siding.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure, And I do remember asking, Quinn about that. I forgot what the reasoning was behind it, or if we just can do it for whatever reason, but yeah, there is still those things that are still outstanding out there.
Yeah, a couple of my neighborhood. H and Forbes.
Yeah, I walk my dogs here every night.
Exciting, also.
Yeah, right, you know, those two next to each other right there, yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let's keep moving on. I'm gonna forego my report because I think we're a little bit over, and why don't we go straight to the chief's report?
Chief, got anything?
Just wanted to give the update on, Marinwood.
Go ahead.
So, Marinwood, as you guys are aware, that I am also the fire chief from Marinwood. We've been having staffing issues there for ever since I've been here. We got down to only 5 employees for 9 positions there. So that was been in December, we got to that point. Part of it has been that we haven't been able to hire in years. Part of it, we believe it's because of low compensation that's there, and really no avenue to promote internally or anything like that. It's basically just 9 employees and that's it. That's all you get in there. That's one of the problem. And then the other problem that's manifested over the last probably 2-3 years is that everybody's in competition for firefighter paramedics out there. So once we're in competition, if you're a firefighter paramedic that's anywhere decent, you basically get to pick where you want to work at this point. You want to work at big city, you want to work in Marinwood, and more likely to the compensation, it's just not attractive. I did make 2 offers before in December, which I got 2 people the 2 offers that I made, and both of them were rejected. One straight up for compensation, and then the other one was because of going to the fire department. So now we are in communication with them. They formally asked us to see if we could do a fee for service. Basically, we go in there with our firefighters and we cover their station. And that's where in the process that we're at right now. So a lot of conversations with both the city side, with the mayor and Councilmember Kurtz, and 2 of their board members are now forming an ad hoc committee to staff those conversations and move forward with that in mind. So once again, there will be in the details because it is a negotiation. It does mean money going back and forth type of deal. But I know that this has been happening for the last 30 years, if not longer than that. The conversations going back and forth and peaks and valleys on whether we're moving forward or not. So this is the last stand. For me personally, I've asked I said, we either need to do this or we need to break the relationship at this point, just because I don't want to have that pressure. They need to figure things out over there on there. But we'll see where we end with that. With that being said, we do, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we do currently allow our firefighters to go up there and work overtime. So the occasion they work overtime up there. One of the inherent problems is that we have to retract them back once there's a vacant San Rafael. So I've gone to the union to request that we don't longer do that. We don't retract them, that we just leave them up in Marinwood. And then that would potentially mean that the vacancy needs to be filled here or be filled with mandatory. It's not that we're not going to fill it, just that how we fill it, either volunteer or mandatory. Preferably, it's always the voluntary type of overtime. So those are the conversations going on right now. So we'll figure this out here when the next couple of months, see where we're at.
Is the compensation similar between San Rafael and?
No, like their captain makes less than our starting firefighter.
Chief, I want clarity. Are you saying that we either absorb them in and they become a formal part of San Rafael Fire or not? Is that what's on the table?
More or less.
So that would be accretive to the department if we took them on and they became officially part of our fire department, yes?
Yes.
What are the odds?
Think if we're ever gonna do it right now, it would be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's hope it happens.
Yeah, and it's nine extra employees for us. It's an extra engine company.
Be really good. And we have good rapport with them.
Yes, yeah, I mean, they do our training where they're part of us now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of a separation because I don't have authority over budgeting or anything like that. I have to go to their board, not their board, but their the manager there, the community service district. And one of the things I have to be really frank, like with one of the driving forces for me is that it's a community service district, and it probably was fine 20 years ago when they were partially volunteer and that kind of stuff like that. And it's kind of a stepping stone for people to go somewhere else. But once they decided to be a career fire department, there's a lot of liabilities and vulnerabilities out there that they're not equipped to handle at this point. Even the simple case of any kind of political type of fall for something or just bring up an issue, they are way out of their league at this point to be able to handle. So we try to do our best, but once again, I as a fire chief have limited capacity within that department. So for me, it would be a great thing to be able to bring those 9 employees on board with us. Even though there's only 5 of them right now, but in theory, it'd be 9 positions that would bring on to the San Rafael Fire Department.
Good.
Sorry, chief.
No, that's fine, because my report really was brief in nature, and the most important things already been discussed, and that was starting on page 3, the fire commission role and function. You started off with that and had a really good discussion, so really nothing else to report on that. The other items are just minor operational and training updates. The one kind of funny but sad thing is the headline article is announcing Hannah McCullough as our temp fire admin, and now we're saying farewell to her because she's been hired as a fire inspector for the city of Vallejo, so her last day is in a week or two, but she's been great. She came out of the vegetation management division and stepped in as our temporary admin while Marie was on maternity leave. And but unfortunately, we're gonna lose Hannah now to Vallejo, but congratulations to her. And that's all I have.
All right, any other business?
Just one last comment, hats off Chief Roman and Quinn and Kate for your your town hall meeting with the mayor, it was great.
Yeah, we hope to do more of those. We really introduced that to the mayor to saying, hey, this would be really good. We got together and do this, and she bit off on it also. So that was good. And we're gonna do another one in Marinwood here coming up with the next couple of months. And then hopefully once a year, we just repeat those. So
That was gonna be one of the things I asked in my report, so thank you, but I missed both of those. Is there a recording, Thomas, available?
It was recorded.
Yeah.
I think Quinn is gonna post it. She just asked for the recording. today.
yeah, once we get
Okay.
once we get it, we'll get it out to you.
Okay,
Then we're creating a Q&A also to be able to answer some questions that we didn't get to during discussion.
Okay.
So
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How was the attendance? Do you know, Thomas, how many?
I
People
think
were
there
on the Zoom?
were about 20 to 25 people in person on the first one, and about 8 to 10 online. And in the second one, I want to say there were maybe 15 people online. That one was done in the middle of the day.
Okay,
So, my ask later on will be to have commissioners participate in it, as not necessarily as panelists, but potential panelists in the future. But certainly as, spectators of what we're going through in there, and then also inviting 1 or 2 people. What I'm gonna say is that the expectation is that everybody invite 2 people to come over.
Yeah.
And that's just an invitation, so, because we want to get more people in there, more active people. One of the things, we received a lot of comments during the LA fires about us keeping your heads in the sand, and you guys aren't doing anything. You're going like, our whole careers are not about preventing these fires. We spend a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of time into a lot of programs that we're doing, eucalyptus, raising, burning, all these things, and then in addition to any number of things that we do operationally. So that was like, none of us took it offensive, but we took it as like, well, we're not sharing the narrative of what we're doing.
Mhm.
Hence the social media, hence the
Right.
public information, engagement, that kind of stuff, is that we're trying to, but we've always suffered from not having consistent staffing on those aspects of it. So this is what this is one of my main objectives next year, is that we get out in front of this and create our own narrative, and that way nobody creates it for us. So.
And having the tragedy in Los Angeles is a wake-up call for all of us and an opportunity to create awareness when everybody's thinking about it. I mean, a lot of people have personal connections. I know 7 people who lost their homes.
Which is funny, it's funny, this must be a Marin County thing, because there are so many people that have association with Palisades
Yeah,
in Marin County. That's been really like eye-opening for me. Like, there's a lot of people that have relatives in Los Angeles that live here in Marin County right now.
Yeah.
So that was pretty eye-opening to me, because as we were having these conversations. I have like my dad lives there, like literally some guy said, oh, my dad lives there. He was one of the ones that left early on and all that kind of stuff. So really kind of brings it home. Yeah, we definitely personalize the effect that particular fire had.
yeah, for sure. Well, maybe one thing that we can do about the recordings of the panel conversations, Thomas, get those promoted on social media through Nextdoor and other things, because I know oftentimes for people, it's hard to make a live event,
Right.
But they're more than happy to listen to recordings.
Sure. We'll promote that, and I'll send it to everyone here once we get that posted.
Okay, thank you,
All right, any other business? All right, we're adjourned.
thank you.
So, will we do a tour now? Does
Yes.
the crew here?
Obviously, if they're out.
Is the ladder truck still?
No, I think the ladder
uh,
truck departed.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
We just wander around, right?
We can give you an abbreviated tour, but captains here, they can give you a much better tour.